Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about code monkeys and working with them. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, have you ever worked with a code monkey like the ones that you have described? What was it like? The answer here is very simple. Yes, many times. I don't think I've ever been to any company or even talked to anybody who either hasn't worked with the code monkey or are like they are the code monkey. Like it's usually one of the two. There's all like almost I would say practically every single company have code monkeys. And the thing is, you may think that being a code monkey is something that is bad, but it's actually not necessarily a bad thing. It's just bad if the environment that you find yourself in requires you to be something different. Let me explain that a little bit. So, the way that I look at the code monkey or the person, let's just define that first and foremost, at least from per my definition, a code monkey is a human being who focuses solely on their job, their tasks. In other words, they are not involved all that much in the higher perspective of things. They don't really ask so much, why are we doing this? Is this the right thing to be doing? Is there a better way of doing things? They're kind of just they will deal with whatever is thrown at them. In other words, they're the yes person in the room. If someone says, if the stakeholder comes in and says we want this to be built, they will not question that. They will just say, yeah, sure, regardless of what it is, even if they can later on realize that there are there are misses in the specification, they don't even take the time in many cases to ask questions or like try to clarify things or develop the specification in any way. They're just, for the most part, going to accept things as they are. The problem with this is that when you have such a person, usually what happens is that they get fairly productive and they can actually churn out code. It's not like they're bad developers, they will just produce, which is a good thing in many cases. And to a lot of companies, this is a good thing because you don't really want someone to necessarily always question you or have like radical ideas, because that's the other part of it. You can be a philosopher, which is also a fairly bad thing, because if you're a philosopher, you are the contrast, you are the opposite side, or the other side of the coin of the code monkey. You are a person who has a lot of ideas. Maybe a few of them are good, but most of them may not. Well, you don't know until you try, and the problem is that when you've tried, you've already paid the company has already paid for what could have been a mistake on your part. And depending on your philosophy in the company, if you're a very innovative experimental company, you might like that a lot. You encourage that. That is what is trendy in the startup world at Google and Facebook and all of this sort of stuff, right? But if you flip that coin and you go into, say, consultancies, or you go into more traditional minded companies, the code monkey is actually a very good fit for you because you just want someone to do whatever you tell them to. Now, the issue is if you only have code monkeys, you will get to a point where they will just this is where legacy gets created, because they will simply continue without ever questioning or doing what's right for the product. They will simply try to fix it regardless of what the specification is. And that is an issue, because if you don't have somebody who can speak the language of the stakeholder, you cannot set expectations, you cannot steer things in the right direction. You will simply just accept whatever naive vision, usually, because it is usually naive, and that's because of the stakeholders' view is usually very naive, and that's not their fault. Remember, they're not technical people. They don't know if a feature is going to cause a problem or if a specific implementation is going to cause a lot of bugs. That's on you as the developer. So if you have a code monkey who doesn't fill that role, you have a bit of a problem. Traditionally, what you do when you're dealing with a code monkey, and that is the thing that I've seen consistently work every single time, is that you pair that individual with a person who has that higher perspective. A lot of traditional companies have solved this through having a tech lead or some person like that. You have somebody who is a little bit more social, a little bit more responsible for taking charge and making sure that there's a tech vision and like that things are going in the right direction. That's the thing with the code monkey. Like what I like to say is that the code monkey is like an engine. that's what in many cases they are. Like every person that I ever would have said that, yeah, you're a little bit of a code monkey, they are all like engine. They are usually very dependable, and they will get the job done, but they need to be told what to do. You need somebody else to take charge of like the decision making process and vision and all of this other stuff, so that the backlog is filled up with things that make the code monkey feel like, yeah, I know what I'm supposed to do. I'm just gonna go and do that thing. I don't want to do much. Like, they're not bad people. That's what I want to come to. They are different styles of people. The worst possible combination that you can possibly create is a code monkey together with a philosopher. That is the worst. Like, that's like a factory for legacy code, because the code monkey will just do whatever they're doing, usually their way, because like the philosopher usually has a lot of ideas, which usually the code monkey doesn't really get. Like, sometimes they can. Then that is a union made in hell. If the code monkey starts believing the philosopher's ideas, and like they are all good and they all start trying to do that, that's really bad. But probably what's even worse is when they don't communicate, because then you find you have one developer who just kind of delivers results at any cost, which causes a bit of legacy, and then you have another developer who is trying to solve the mysteries of the universe through CSS, and they don't communicate, and all of a sudden you have a code base that is like so segmented that it's practically impossible for anybody to get anything done. So the times that I've worked with a code monkey it's actually turned out fairly well, for at least for me, because I usually find that the code monkey, as I said, like they're very good developers most of the time. It's just that they lack a bit of vision and lack a bit of imagination, if that makes sense. So as long as you pair them, or you set them in a room with people where they can feel a little bit inspired and maybe understand the reasoning, you just need to take the time to make sure that they're on board. Then everything's fine, as long as you follow that one golden rule that I preach, and I will preach until the day I quit this industry, which is, it is above all else important that everybody in the room has the same mental picture of what is going to be built. That is the most important thing of any story. If you have different opinions or different ideas of what's going to be delivered, you're fucked. You're not going to be able to deliver. You're going to have to tweak things, and you're going to have to fix things. So if you can't get to that point, you need to do whatever it takes to get to that point. And if you do that, it doesn't really matter if it's another developer who is going to help the code monkey to understand that. It can be another stakeholder. It just has to be someone who has the social skills to actually make that happen. So what I want you to take away from this is that usually when I've dealt with a code monkey, because there's usually several in every single company, and I think that it's a little bit in some cases, I think that the emphasis, especially in the startup world and a lot of the more innovative companies, there is a lot of hype around everybody should be a rock star developer, everybody should be super innovative and super passionate. Guys, the vast majority of developers are code monkeys. You tell them to do A, they're going to do A. And then we've created this weird situation where it's almost expected that if I tell you A, you should have figured out that I meant B, because you're supposed to be this developer and you should be that smart. Some people are that smart, or some people are wired that way, and some people are not. Some people are deliverers. They just like an engine. They will produce, and usually really well, but you have to give them direction. And we unfortunately are in this weird industry where there's really no requirement on managers that are non-technical, of course, to actually have the skills to do all of this stuff, which creates this situation where you usually are best off. You're usually in the best position if you can find one developer who has a more holistic picture of things, and the social skills, of course, and a developer who is a code monkey who just churns stuff out. That is a union made in heaven. It is like the perfect situation, the perfect team composition if you can achieve it. Have a great day.